Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan in his own words. And he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-host, my dad, Mitch McMahon, my aunt, Lori McMahon Summerfield, and Dale Croft from the Lowell Historical Museum.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving some context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, we learn about Dad's new ship. He has the chance to visit with some family members, and we pose a puzzle to our listeners.
Yes, we do. We need help. If you remember from a couple of episodes ago, Bruce's plane received some severe damage from flak over a trip to Ham. In our first letter today, we're going to read about his replacement. So in his own words.
Sunday, April 23rd, 1944. Dear Mother and Dad, how's my favorite parents today? I'm not asking for today, but about 10 days ago on Sunday morning, because that's right now, your time. It's 5 in the afternoon here, and 10 o'clock in the morning, your time. Bet you're eating breakfast, bacon, eggs, and coffee maybe? Well, your youngest and most worrisome son is hokey dokey. Toothless, yes, but feeling like a million nevertheless. I don't believe I told you I have another new ship now. Don't ask me how, but my miss is not what she used to was. I've had this new one now for a while, and the name is Captain and His Kids. Thought up by my navigator, Samway. A clever fellow drew a picture of the captain and his kids comic strip on the nose panel, and it looks swell. I'll try to show you. The drawing is identical to the comics artist drawings of the captain and Hans and Fritz. It's really very good and makes the third ship I've gone through since I've been here. As you know, O'Reilly's daughter and Michigan Miss. You may wonder why I didn't call them O'Reilly's daughter 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm just a mite superstitious, and as a Ford is such a human sort of thing, I don't think it would be fair to call them all by the same name. Let me explain. Now, O'Reilly's daughter was always a trifle nose-heavy with the bomb load, and she would climb in right turns. Michigan Miss had a tendency to lose altitude in right turn, and she would stall pretty fast on landings. You see, there are a lot of little personality traits that make each Ford an individual, even though she was run off an assembly line with 50 others. On my last raid, I wrote greetings from each one of my nieces and nephews on my bombs, so tell the kids I've taken care of that detail for them. 4 or 5 hours after I wrote their names, I'm afraid they'd be a little hard to read, if you get what I mean. This afternoon, I'll be loafing around here in my room listening to the radio. They have a bunch of good American programs on, and the reception has been very good. Information Please is on the program now with Jesse Stewart as a guest for today. And here is news. A fellow just came in my room and told me that I had a cousin only a few miles from here. Said his name was Lally. Billy, of course. I'm going to get over there tomorrow first thing. I'll write tomorrow and let you know if I saw him. Said he was a co-pilot on a fort, so that must be Bill. I'll get some sleep now. It's taken till supper to finish this. So long for now. All my love. Your loving son, Bruce.
There's a lot to talk about in this letter, for sure. The biggest maybe being that his cousin, Bill, is now in England. We're going to talk about him a bit later in this episode, so we'll get to Bill. But first of all, we need to know more about Captain and His Kids. This is the plane that I see appear the most often in Bruce's photos on the 306 website. So that's the one I always kind of associate with him, the Captain and His Kids. And he said his navigator, Samway, came up with it based on the comic strip. So Dale, what can you tell us about this comic?
Well, this comic strip, 1897 to
Wow.
2006 American comic strip.
Whoa.
The story of
remember.
Captain and the Kids begins in 1897 when Rudolf Dirks created the Katzenhammer Kids comic that was inspired by the European children's story of Max and Moritz. It debuted on December 12, 1897 in William Randolph Hearst's New York Journal. After a series of legal battles between 1912 and 1914, Dirks left the Hertz organization and began a new strip, first titled Hans and Fritz, and then The Captain and the Kids. The Captain and the Kids debuted in 1914, featuring the mischievous antics of two brothers, Hans and Fritz, and their interactions with their mother and the captain. It ran concurrently with Dirks' earlier strip, The Katzenheimer Kids. Now that was the battle. He wanted to leave so he could start another comic, but he had to change the name of the characters. So that's when they changed to Hans and Fritz, etc.
Hans and Fritz.
The two separate versions of the strip competed with each other until 1979,
Wow.
when the Captain and the Kids ended its 6-decade run. The Katzenhammer Kids published its last strip on January 1st, 2006.
Oh, wow.
Both were known for their humor and playful storytelling. Lasting 109 years, the Katzenhammer Kids is still the longest-running American comic strip in history, despite its conclusion in 2006.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Oh, I remember. I
Okay.
read it every Sunday.
The Katzenhammer Kids or
Yeah.
Captain and his kids? Or
No,
both?
Katzenhammer.
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 You can't even say
Yeah,
it. That's great.
I tongue twister.
Katzenhammer. I
Yeah.
forget.
So,
Oh.
Katzenhammer. I forget how I used to say it. But anyway, I probably was wrong. But,
Yeah.
but no, I read it every Sunday.
109 years comic
Wow.
strip.
All right. Well, he in this letter, he also references the artwork on his plane, like the comic strip. So he says somebody drew it on the side of his plane, and we have many pictures of this that will be in our primary source documents on the Lowell Historical Museum website. We'll put them on Instagram, and because you'll see that's on the side of his plane. But he also sketches the drawing in his letter for his family, and we'll post that too. So he says, I'll show you, and he kind of tries to sketch what's on the side of his plane. So he's sketching the plane and then the thing on the inside. I don't know. It's a meta drawing and a drawing. And I also love how he describes how his planes have like different personalities.
Yeah, that was cool.
They're like his kids, so he doesn't want to name
much
them all
like
the same
humans,
thing. They're
right?
too much like humans.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Very
fun.
cool.
Yeah, and he wrote his nieces and nephews' names on his bombs.
Yeah, that's
Wild. Does Gail know this?
I don't know.
Is she
Maybe.
aware that there was a
Maybe.
bomb over Germany with her name on it in 1944? Does Jill,
I'm
do
going to
Jill
say
and
yes.
Judy
I'm
know?
going to guess yes.
I don't know. That's pretty cool. But I have seen pictures of people writing things on
Oh, yeah.
on the
that's-
bombs all the time.
Yeah.
But it's those greetings from
Yeah.
all his nieces and nephews.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. All right. Well, we'll talk more about Bill here in a little bit. But now it's time to get into our segment where we talk about what was going on in the world and in Lowell in April 1944. And in our last episode, we talked a bit about the mail call program. And this time we're going to talk sports in his own words.
April 25th, 1944. Dear Mother and Dad, well, I'm kind of disappointed today. I went looking for Billy Lally, but he wasn't at the group that I had been told about. However, he must be around close because I missed word of him like I did. Tomorrow, I'll really start out early and track him down. Most of the news crews came through a certain distribution center over here, and I'll go there to get my information. By my stars and stripes, the Detroit Tigers have finally snapped out of that 4-game losing streak and whipped the Indians in a doubleheader. That looks better. Now I can go bragging again. Though your letter spoke of my being here quite a while, Mom, maybe Dad and I will get a chance to see one of those games. So don't get figuring I'll be gone too long. Even as in the States, I don't know too much about when I'll get a chance to come home. Gee, aren't those men in the South Pacific really going to town? By the paper, they've cut off 60,000 Japs, and that's a lot of men. Once we can concentrate the Allied forces on them, we'll make short work of them. Right now, when such monstrous shipping to this theater is taking place, we're still advancing on them in the East. Well, nothing more for tonight, so good night, God bless you, your loving son, Bruce.
Well, since Bruce is bragging about them, Dale, what can you tell us about this 1944 Detroit Tigers
The
team?
1944 Detroit Tigers season was significant because on opening day, the Tigers had 10 players serving in the military, including 2 of their best players and 1 budding star in Dick Wakefield. Even though the roster had aged by an average of almost 2 years, it was a breakthrough campaign for Detroit. The team also had a strong attendance record, 923,176 fans attending the games at Briggs Stadium,
Wow.
which was the highest in the league. On April 19th, first baseman Rudy York hit his 100th career hit, and in 1937, when he was with the Tigers, he broke Babe Ruth's record by hitting 18 home runs in a single month.
All right.
The stadium was nicknamed the Corner for its location at the intersection of Michigan and Trumbull. I never knew that, so I thought that was kind of interesting. The roster I looked at, 1944 roster, I looked at some of the names, and we had some, I think, pretty cool names.
Oh, man.
We had Rudy York at first base, Eddie Mayo at second base, Pinky Higgins at third base, shortstop Joe Hoover. Left field was Dick Wakefield, which was their budding star. Center field was Doc Kramer. Right field was Chuck Hostetler. And then pitchers were Roof Gentry, Hal Newhouser, Stubby Omeyer, Dizzy Trout, and RP, I guess, what's RP? Right?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right-hand pitcher.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Was Boom Boom Beck.
Boom, boom,
And
back.
CL,
was good.
center, CL was, I don't know, that was, I don't know what that was. It was
CL?
Johnny Corsica. And then the wages, we talk about multi-million-dollar deals. No, 1944 salaries for the Detroit Tigers. Their highest paid player was Paul Richards at $42,000 a year. Their their least player was Charlie Metro at $3,500.
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
$3,500.
That's it. That's so
$42,000. Now it's $42 million for one season, or close to it.
Something
on
like
some of
that. I'm
these.
sure more than that.
Crazy.
For some people,
That
but
was all Kurt Flood's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, Al Kaline didn't even make $100,000 until maybe his last year or something. So.
okay. All right. Well, yeah.
And they finished behind St. Louis that year in second place. St. Louis, I think, went on to win the World Series that year, if I remember
So did
right.
they play
Okay.
each other in the World Series?
No.
No.
Well, St.
Maybe
Louis.
They were
the-
second in the American League. Is
Well,
it?
St. Louis is in the National League, though. Or
Okay.
maybe,
Well,
maybe not then.
Maybe not in
Could've
1944.
been- yeah.
Well, 1944 was.
Who knows?
Yeah. Could have
Who
been the St.
knows?
Louis Browns then, too.
Or, yeah, whatever it was.
I don't know. We can
They
figure
had
that one out.
86 wins that year.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
how many
Yeah,
games they played in.
66, I think was the
Okay.
roster.
All right. Not bad.
But
Not bad
boom,
at all.
boom, back.
Boom back. Okay.
I like that.
I like it too. Yeah, well, he was bragging about them snapping that 4-game losing streak. So we had to mention him. Yeah. Before we move on, though, I do want to mention. We probably shouldn't have even read the word Japs. Now I'm realizing this, but Bruce also uses a racial slur when describing Japanese people in this letter, one that we did not read. They did not put it in the podcast. We don't condone the use of it. We've talked about this before, but we're not censoring the letter. So if you're following along, you'll see it. That's the language of the time that we know we don't use anymore. He uses it when he's describing how we're advancing on the Japanese army during this time in New Guinea, which did happen in April 1944, although he was wrong about us making short work of them once we were done in Europe. It still took another year and 2 atomic bombs before the Japanese would surrender. But he was pretty convinced that once we finished in Europe, that the rest of it would go very quickly. But nope, not at all. The next day, though, he wrote another letter with an update on Bill, in his own words.
April 26, 1944. Dear Mother and Dad, my efforts to find Billy were a little bit more successful today. I've located him at the 92nd Group. I flew over there this morning and found he was in the 326th Squadron. I was disappointed because he was flying on a practice flight, but I left a note for him telling me I'll fly back tomorrow and see him. Tell Aunt Lizzie he's in a good group, and that I've already told some of his friends over there about him. As soon as I talk to him, I'm going to drop her a line. In case you're wondering, my gums are about healed now, and tomorrow the doc is going to take out the stitches. In about 3 weeks, I'll have my impression made, and about 3 weeks from then, I'll have my choppers. Tonight, I did pretty well with some Swiss steak and ate 2 rolls. Surprising what you can do with your tongue, the roof of your mouth, your lowers, and a good appetite. The mess sergeant has been fixing me soup, but I told him tonight that I wouldn't need it anymore. From now on, I can handle whatever is on the menu. Don't pass the peanuts. Lately, my letters are a lot like the news from over here. Nothing much of interest and little to say about what there is. Really, I'm not going out very much lately. Teeth, maybe. And that eliminates my main source of news. Much more interesting topic would be about the raids and the preparation for the invasion, but that's out, as you know. Still, I'll keep on sending these little notes to keep you company. Good night, my dearest Mom and Dad. Your loving son, Bruce.
I do think of Grandpa whenever I hear Swiss steak.
He made a great Swiss
Well,
He
steak.
yes,
made
he
that
did.
all the time.
Yeah. He liked it.
I know. I would call it Grandpa food. He'd bring it over and just be like, anything with just a thick gravy on it was always
Carrots
the
and
stuff that
onions
he
and
liked to make.
celery, you know.
I did ask Mom one time, well, why don't we ever have rice? And she said, Dad had too much rice in the service.
Oh.
Didn't want rice.
Oh,
So because I liked rice, but
Oh,
we-
interesting.
We didn't have
Okay.
it. Yep, we didn't have
really
it.
got sick of it, I guess. More importantly, though, he found Bill. finally figured out where he was. So we'll take a minute to refresh the listeners on who Bill is. So Bill Lally, and you guys can correct me, but I think this is right, judging by some family tree stuff. Bill Lally is Bruce's cousin. His mom, Bill's mom, is Elizabeth Lally, Frank's sister. They call her Aunt Lizzie.
Yep.
Jack Lally, who Bruce went to school with at LHS and CMU, is Bill's older brother. So it's Jack and Bill together, right? Bill and his brother Jack, both of them have amazing stories. And we're definitely in the war, like war stories. And we're going to take a side quest into their experiences for sure, because we're going to need to talk about the Lally brothers. Just not in this episode. That one needs its whole episode by itself.
Yeah.
But yes, more to come on those two. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Phew. We got it. I know.
Did Jack Lally go to Lowell? For sure.
Yeah, I think, they were all in the
okay.
same. Yeah,
All right.
we had,
Okay.
they were in the same class, I think, right? Bruce and Jack?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Just double
Yeah.
checking.
Yep.
All right. So now it's time for our segment where we reveal information we know about Bruce's flight missions. For this information, we have to consult flight records and mission diaries from the historical website of the 306 Bomb Group and all of its squadrons. Thanks to them for giving us all kinds of information. Bruce had mentioned that because of his teeth, he hadn't been leading missions much. I think he'd been grounded for, with his teeth. But on May 1st, 1944, the 306 Squadron actually flew 2 missions in one day. Bruce started the day with a mission to Calais called Plan A. So, Aunt Lori, you want to read from the combat diary?
Sure. Calais Area A. 17 aircraft of the 306th, led by Captain James Bruce McMahon and the crew of the 368th, took off for a target in the Calais area. Extreme difficulty was encountered in making formation due to the clouds and darkness. No bombs were dropped as weather conditions over the continent obscured the target. Captain McMahon ordered the mission abandoned.
So they didn't really make it that far. Because the mission was abandoned, according to the combat diaries, the group went up again later in the day and flew to Reims, but Bruce wasn't on that one, so we don't know. So I'm guessing because his one had to be abandoned for the weather, they went up again. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm
maybe.
thinking what happened, but yeah. So speaking of missions, though, Bruce wrote a letter to his parents about pilot fatigue, as he calls it, which I think we would most likely describe now as just PTSD, right? And
Yeah.
mental health
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
So in his own words.
Friday, April 28th, 1944. Dear Mother and Dad, just finished addressing a letter to Aunt Lizzie after being with Bill all day yesterday. She'll probably show you my letter, so I won't repeat it here, except that I located Bill yesterday morning and brought him back here to spend the day in conversation. I flew him back last night. I sure talked an arm off of him getting the news of home and that he had picked up while he was on leave in January. He said that both of you were in good shape, which gave me a great lift. Sis wrote yesterday, or rather, I received it yesterday, and she too said you seem to be taking this worrying a bit more philosophically. Well, you have no idea how much this means to me. Over here, I have no worries, no fears, and the only and big worry I have is you. I guess you know without me telling you, but it doesn't hurt to write it occasionally. A common phrase in this combat is sweating out missions. In this, they mean that a fellow begins to fear and dread his next raid, imagining that this time I'll get it, etc. This is one of the chief causes of pilot fatigue because it never gives the fellow a chance to relax. It's not at all uncommon to come into a sleeping barrack and hear, "Flak, flak, look out at 9 o'clock," and other cracks coming from some fellow in his sleep, still fighting although he's supposed to be getting rest. Well, this, as I repeat, is causing for fellows getting flak happy and suffering nerves. But the point I want to get to you is clear to you is I don't sweat out my missions. A lot of us don't, although I say the majority is on those that do. It's perfectly evident from my letters to you that my mind is not suffering unduly. Many of my letters to you are written immediately after returning from a rough mission. It's obvious that they are not written under any mental condition. Fact is, I'd say they show a beautiful lack of mentality. Just know your son suffers no fears over here whatsoever, and some of the narrow squeaks that I've had to go under the heading of thrills, not fears. This frame of mind is the one that I'm continually grateful to you for. Good night now, your loving son, Bruce.
Aw.
That's
I know.
just crazy, isn't it?
It is.
That's a good attitude. Thrills, not fears.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
This thrills, not fears. It's thrilling, not scary. But yeah, that's still, I don't know. That's still
It's
wild.
easier said than to
I
pull
know,
off.
right? Like I kind of don't believe him, but I suppose
I
it's
kind of don't either.
I think when you're in the middle of it, though, you have to
I
have
think,
that
yeah.
kind of.
yeah.
Mentality.
I wonder if later, like years later, he started to kind of like
Think
not
about
pilot fatigue, but like
Think about it.
when
sure.
he came back home. I'm sure he did.
Sure.
Like not wanting rice, for
Yeah.
example. Could be
I just love how he
considered.
credits his mom and dad for that tough mentality, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
kinda think so,
I
yeah.
know.
That's great.
It is sad to say though. So this day, this letter, I guess what Bruce wrote this on. What did you just read, Aunt Lori? April 28th. And he was with Bill on April 27th or whatever, right? So he's writing this letter right around this time, either that day after Bruce and Bill had their conversation or the day after that. Bill's plane goes down over the Netherlands and he's reported missing. So Bruce was one of the last people to talk to him or family members to see him before he went down. And so that's a whole other story that that's what I was referring to before. We're going to
You don't want to do any
have to get
spoilers?
into.
Do you want any
No
spoilers?
spoilers.
No spoilers.
Okay. All right.
No spoilers. They all have to keep listening for Bill's story.
Kind of masters of the air. We
Dun,
knew
dun,
he was coming back, didn't we?
We did.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Stop it.
All right. All right. Well, Masters of the Air. They did that. They did that with the Masters of the Air. You didn't know. I actually looked it up. I didn't want to wait for the next episode. I looked up that
yeah,
pilot.
it's hard to do
and I went-
spoilers, Dad, when it's history. You could just Google it.
I did Google it and said, what? And they said, oh no, he was in a. I'm like, okay, all right.
Let's let our listeners worry about Bill for a little while.
Well, they should worry about Bell because we don't really know what happened. I don't really know.
It's quite a story.
It is a
Wow.
story. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to get. It deserves its own episode,
Yeah.
which we will do. So we got to end with something light. We can't end on PTSD and getting shot down over the
There you go.
Netherlands. So included with one of Bruce's letters is another letter that's written on Lowell Light and Power Stationery, and it's signed Barney. So it's a letter to Bruce, signed Barney, who we can presume is burned, but we're not 100% sure given the ambiguity that we went into
Of that
last
one
episode.
letter, yeah.
The interesting part of this letter to Bruce is that it's written as a rebus puzzle. So for our listeners, a rebus puzzle is when words are represented as a combination of pictures and individual letters. So the word apex might be represented by an ape, picture of an ape, a plus sign, and the letter X, right? So you can read it as like apex. So this entire letter, other than the Barney signature, is a rebus. So we can't read it. Well, and like literally, we can't read it out loud to you because it's a picture, and we also don't know what it says.
We need help.
We are really trying to figure this out. So I know it's a podcast. You can't see the rebus now as we're looking at it, but we got to try to figure out some of this. And of course, we're going to post this rebus on the Historical Museum primary sources and our YouTube video on Instagram. So we're going to need listeners' help with this one. But we have this rebus in front of us, and we have been trying with very much difficulty to figure out what this letter
hours.
says.
We should let people know. It's not. We got here today, but we've been looking at this for a couple hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Individually and together to try to
Yes.
figure out what this says.
And we have some of it figured out, but no spoilers. Okay.
Okay.
Let's let people try to figure it out.
Are we
on
not
their
telling
own.
any of them? Okay.
Well, I mean, we can say
No, we can wait a week before we say what we
some of
what we got
them.
figured out.
I think we could reveal a couple maybe just so
No,
people know. No?
no.
So
Let's-
people know what we're talking about?
No. People let them.
I'm
figure
really
it out.
very curious about how about the middle of the second sentence. We can say that the second sentence.
We need help on a lot of things, so
Yeah, we
just
need
say,
help
we
on
need
a
your
lot of
help.
it.
So
We do. We think it starts with deer.
Oh.
I'll just go with that. We got to say something. The deer is not a spoiler. I think a letter starts with a deer, but that's how we but it's a picture of that Byrne drew of a deer with antlers. So there you go. So that's what we're talking about when we're trying to figure this out. Yeah. So we will.
Do you think it comes out? Does it come out look pretty? It looks pretty good. Like you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
I can darken it up or do something.
Oh
Yeah,
my
we'll
God.
make it so
'Cause I
everybody
just
can
kept-
read it for sure.
Yeah, I did want to. Oh, yeah, I did want to like make it bigger. I was like,
it's hilarious. It's pretty funny. It's pretty
We
funny.
think
Wow,
so.
yeah.
There's some pictures of. I don't have to say what they. Well, I don't know. There's.
Don't say anything.
Really? You don't want us to say anything at all?
No, not yet. Let
Okay.
people try it for a week and see what they come up with.
All right. Yeah. See if you can figure out this letter, because we're struggling with
Because
it.
I figured a few things out, and I felt very proud of myself.
Oh, so you don't want to rob
I don't
anybody
want
else of
to
that?
take that from anyone, no.
I just so want to see something that it's not. There's not an eyebrow in there. That's something that's a hint. That's a
Oh.
hint.
Yeah, that took a while, I guess.
Okay, that was one
That
I
was very subtle.
I was stuck on that a lot. So
Okay.
there's not
There you go.
an eyebrow. Okay,
All
so
right.
that's
Enough of that.
That's enough of that.
Pay
Okay.
attention to the punctuation.
Yes.
Yeah,
But,
that's
That's
right.
That's
There,
helpful.
that's a good one, right? The dashes don't mean minus. That was another thing I was trying to figuring out.
Yes.
But yeah, well, yeah, we'll post it. Comment, flag us down, anything. We will. We're gonna have to reveal it once we figure it out. But we really have not fully figured this out yet.
No.
So we don't know. We'll get to it.
We'll,
But
we'll talk about it next week, and then we'll go from there.
I'll bet Don Lehman will figure it out.
Oh, okay.
all right, the challenge flag has been thrown.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Help us read a letter for once.
Yeah.
We need to figure.
That's a good one.
You
Amy.
guys read it.
Help us read one.
help. All right. Well, yeah, we'll leave you on that challenge for our listeners. Thank you all for listening to Letters Home. We hope you continue to listen as we go through Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Thursday. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters so you can read them in full, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to Lowell Radio for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Stream it at lowellradio.org. See you next time.